over time to see how they're changing with changing ocean conditions.
So the next one to do is see if you can
A lot of coral rubble
hook the
in
end of that.
last night's dive, and Alexis seemed to think it was
You can do one of those.
all deep water corals, so
Huh.
perhaps they were thriving in that area that we visited in the past, or it's just been building up over centuries. That was really, I've never seen so
Could you
much
check
coral
the gauge
rubble.
limits, please?
That's amazing.
And that's, yeah,
So
make
far
that better.
far.
And I'm
That's a
aware
great
we
idea.
took a
I
coral
wonder if you
rubble
could even make it
sample. Is the plan to try to date those skeletons, or is it possible?
Wow.
I believe so. And also when looking at the sample, it had kind of various
which?
colors. Some were more black and others were more light brown,
I
and that
understand.
kind of shows a varying age. So some of those could be older than others. But definitely that
Control head.
sample is going to be sent to various organizations, one being comparative zoology
Okay, that's good. Cool.
repository where taxonomists will look at it and
Yeah, real
and
deal
also
game.
have further
Right on, it looks
analysis
like the
that way.
settings
And
all
then I know
saved. So it
Temple
must have just
University also
needed
had
it
a sample
off and on again.
sent to them. So
And one of our
think
scientists
so.
ashore, Dean Penshoff from the museum,
like it
the
limiting my
Natural
data.
History
30
Museum
log
in
for
Los
TBG.
Angeles, is interested in
why,
invertebrates,
but
building up their
what
database,
has worked the best.
DNA database on invertebrates, and coral rubble is a good place to look for them. We didn't notice
Nice.
any in yesterday's
Got it.
sample, but if we came across some interesting invertebrates, we would preserve those.
Okay, now you want to get it all out, and then I'll turn on the shoulder.
we've also been collecting eDNA samples, which is basically water samples where it's kind of a non-invasive way of kind of getting a sense of what organisms are in the water column or near the seafloor. And yeah, we can process that as well.
Now, the way that we can
Right,
trace
there.
that DNA to those organisms is by them leaving remains of their tissue and mucus, correct?
Yeah, just kind of whatever they kind of slough off their bodies, or that kind of stays in the water, and then we can filter that water onto like a filter paper, and then kind of get that DNA
That rubber's all
sample
flappy.
and figure out what was in the water.
I see.
Okay. Now you got them all, so be real slow and careful.
Now,
here 'cause you
there's a
can miss things.
question from our viewers that I'm not sure how
So I'm gonna be standing
to
by on the
answer. It has to
valve
do
here, so
with
if you
the
do get
light
into trouble, I can just
sources
stop
on
it
our
from there.
remotely operated vehicles. I'm just going to read it over here and see if anyone has an idea. One of our
Anyways,
viewers
messy
is
up a sec here.
asking if we could
I'm gonna
use
put
high-frequency
bubble
light
cam down there.
sources like
Nice and
UV
big.
or
Let's get
X-ray
another view.
and sensitive cameras
slow
to
and steady
see
there.
the reflected
Ed,
light
your
in
rack
order
back.
to probe deeper into the water and possibly extend visibility.
We could ask, video about this, but my sense is that the higher frequency would be attenuated pretty quickly in the water.
Yeah, there's been some development work that we've done with our partners at the University of Rhode Island about developing like low light sensors, etc. The challenge is to whatever technology you want to test to get it to the bottom of the ocean. It needs to be in a housing milled from a single piece of titanium usually that can withstand 10,000 pounds of pressure per square inch to be rated up to 6,000 meters of depth. And that's very cost prohibitive. So it's difficult to get funding to do tests like that. Another manner of doing work like that to shallower depths is to use an acrylic sphere and seal it using a vacuum to actually make it a vacuum on the inside, put the pieces together and then reintroduce 1 atmosphere pressure around it, and that seals it. And we've done work in that regard as well. but those cannot withstand all of those depths, and they have very
Mhm.
limited functionality as far as battery and control. So yeah, there's a lot of imaging work to be done. The problem with doing that on a remotely operated vehicle is we still need to see where the vehicle is going and what it's doing. And you can't be doing those types of light sensors while you have visible light out there. So you have to shut all of those off, and that's
Good point.
that's.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
what do we
a
have there in
Whoa.
Herc's camera?
Cool, look at that thing.
What
How
is
is
got a
that?
hitchhiker?
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Cool.
Huh, that was
Look like a
interesting.
fish riding a salp, yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Going up.
No.
Nice job. An unlikely pair.
Wow. Nice.
Thanks for
Jelly.
answering
Look
that.
at those
Ed.
tentacles on
Ooh.
the
Those are some
jelly.
long
Wow.
Wow.
Retract.
Down for the ride now.
Did
It's
you
a trend.
notice
Do you
any,
want to wrist out and see if you can let him go?
Trevor, did you notice much current?
What's that?
Did you notice much current on the way down?
Just at the shallow depths. I got to push north and then east, and then later I get let go.
Yeah, we got the thing trapped.
Did you catch a jelly?
Yep.
Huh. Avery caught a jelly.
Look at the Argus view.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Can I keep them?
What? That's a
I'll
pelagatoria.
feed them, I
Whoa.
promise.
Hey.
So try this
Oh,
one.
So
another
much
one.
happening.
Or wrist up, I should say.
Just open the jaw and just like,
You want to wrist up. There you go. Maybe that'll set him free. Maybe not. think
just
it's
open the
sticky
jaw, right? Kind
right
of like
now.
toss it, maybe.
I don't think you could try opening the jaw. I don't think it's stuck in the jaw, but
Oh, no, it's not. Okay, that's a bad assumption.
it's okay.
Is this gonna be here the whole time?
Yep.
Oh.
Now you've done it.
It's got a pet. Keep
It
this
might be able to
jelly.
retract its way down eventually.
Jelly followed me home.
Slope right.
It'll come free eventually. Sure. I wouldn't worry about it for now.
Will it
Yeah.
come free alive though?
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
Nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, nothing we can do.
So
Okay, so you
science,
came
one
from
of our
this,
viewers
came
is
from this
wondering
tube right at
if
the end.
the coral
See if you can come out from the top.
rubble accumulates that
Totally
we've
different
seen
movement.
so far could have been created by the seeping gases from the fissures that we saw, like the little fractures we
the
saw
hose
on
is sticking
the
out. See if you can come at it
boulders
like
last
this. Just
night.
bump it.
If they could, what was the
I'm
relationship to
setting you up
the
for
seeping
the next hard
gases? I
level.
didn't
Once you
hear
get that,
the.
I'm setting you up for the
Yeah,
next-
so they're
thing.
wondering if there's any seeping gases coming through those fractures that we saw last night
Oh,
and having an effect on the coral communities.
I would not expect to have gases down there. These are extinct volcanoes, long extinct, and
In order to get it from
we
the
would.
top, you're going to
I
need
don't
the main
think you'd
shoulder
have much like
way up.
organic material building
And
up that would
elbow down again.
produce methane. But that's a thought. But no evidence of any seeps, no bacterial mats or anything like that. There could be maybe occasional sediment flows down the slopes that might smother corals. That was a thought that I had, but I don't know how realistic that is. There certainly was a lot of coral sediment.
Yeah.
Let me know if you want a hint.
Oh, I think your jelly's gone.
Yeah, mostly. Okay, so that is the top of the hose. I'm trying to I guess I didn't explain it very well. Can you come at it with the jaws like this way instead of this way?
Yeah, I knew what you meant. It's just how it came out.
Sure, yeah. Let me know if you want a hint. Otherwise, I'll let you figure it out on your own.
I'm having a hard time just like with the wrist, getting it down.
Yeah, so right now it is all the way down. You want to bring it up. So that's elbow, but one more joint down, you'll be on the wrist. There you go. So now bring the joint up, this joint, all the way up. Other way. So bring this hand up. Halt it, yeah, bring this down. Bring this down like that. Then unhalt it. Then bring this up, pivoting about this point. So leave this point fixed. Leave this hand nice and secure and just rotate that up. There you go. That's the ticket. So you keep doing a lot more of that.
It's toasty over here.
It's very warm.
Now, Gina, you were talking about processing our biological samples once they
You're back
come
down again. You
up
gotta bring this one
onto
right
our
down
wet
around.
lab after dives. Can you
You want me to show you once? Then put you
talk
back?
a little bit
So
more
right here.
about the process and what our
this
science
and
team
this
does
secure.
in order
Sure.
to
Go like
preserve
this.
them?
Yes, so we have different
Follow me.
processes for biological and geological samples. It
So you're all
depends
stuck
on the
in like
sample,
that.
but
And when you're
usually
going up, you're going like
we'll
this.
take a snip of a,
Which is
if
not
it's a
what you
coral,
want. You want to
we'll take a
only
snip
around
of
this
it and
joint,
put it into a
going
vial
like
and
that.
usually put
And
95%
halt,
ethanol in
bring
it,
it back
and
somewhere
that just is
comfortable,
really good
And now you're good
preservation tool
Follow me?
so that it's sent to various
Put you back in
the
the
repository
pickle you've
that
made for
they can
yourself.
analyze it further. So our
Okay,
main
well.
job is to basically from the minute that the ROV gets on the deck, we take the samples. Generally, the biological samples will go in the fridge right away, just because usually sometimes those are kind of the priority in terms of the samples that we get. And then we usually take pictures of them, and then we do length measurements and writing down
There you go.
all
Yeah,
this
that's the movement.
information
And
and
you're bringing this
cataloging
hand
it.
up, like
So we have
rotating
it,
it back towards
and
you.
then we'll usually preserve it depending on the sample, either in ethanol or drying it. Sometimes we'll take just a snip and
See
then
if you
dry
can
the
keep
rest
this
of the
hand
coral.
totally secure and locked out. Like try to hold that
And
hand
then
so it's
geologic
nothing's moving there.
samples will usually just be dried and will first be looked at, and all the if there's any biological associates, will be picked off, so those
So
can be
keep going,
preserved.
keep going up. Yep, keep going,
and
keep
yeah,
going.
that's kind of the
keep
main
going,
process.
all the way.
So usually get
Now you're nice and straight.
lots of
Good.
deep sea corals. Like
So now when you bring your
bamboo.
elbow in,
We had a really
and your
nice
shoulder up,
bubblegum
That's
coral
now back to these two.
last night
If
that
you
we
can
looked
keep
at.
this part
um,
aligned with this part,
and then some,
you get a lot more vertical reach.
yeah.
So basically, what, keep this part straight, but move this part?
If that answered
Yeah.
it, Will.
Yeah,
just
I
play around with it and
did.
see how that
So,
works, but you're trying
and
to
a
fold
lot
it up
of
so
these
this is all one straight line, and
samples
this is one
are
straight
being
line, and eventually you'll bring
requested
them
by
together.
specific scientists ashore, correct?
Yeah, scientists can request them. I know that well, always send for a biological sample, always send it to MZU, which is the Museum of Comparative Zoology, and so yeah, that regardless always goes there, and then
Okay.
other scientists can request
Nice.
it.
They're
Usually
accessible there.
They're accessible there,
Yeah.
so yeah, it goes there, and then from there they can take it. Yeah, but it's awesome that these are available to the to scientists, to repositories,
Yeah.
just available in general. That's really great.
Yeah, it's not very
Yeah,
cool.
it is.
I took a glimpse at the
You're still about a
Chrysogorgia
foot and a half
samples.
away. You want me to
and
show you
they're
one
beautiful.
time and then
They're really
you try it
the
again?
metallic-looking
Oh
spines.
yeah.
Very delicate-looking too.
So, first time, you came at
Yeah,
it like
we had one last night
this.
that had kind of a hexagonal pattern in its
Right.
branches.
you're actually a little
Yeah.
more like
Yeah.
this even.
Really pretty.
But you
yeah.
see how this joint was like all in itself. You're almost making like a triangle.
Now,
Making a
Chrysogorgia, is it
If you
an
stretch this one
octocoral
out, so
or?
if you straighten this one out and bring the two
yeah, I
together, you get
believe
more
so.
vertical reach there. When you're all triangled,
Does
you're
it
up
have
here.
6?
So I'll show you what that means. So
Oh
from
my
here,
god, I forgot the
you
word.
bring this one up.
Tentacles instead of.
Now you're nice and square and straight.
You know,
You
it's
can
a
stand the
soft
whole arm
coral.
up. Nice and straight. You come over. You're on top of it. So let's do that again. So you're all out like this. I'm doing a compound movement, but we can break it down at a joint at a time. So first thing to do is straighten this out. That's this joint here. The next thing to do is bring this parallel with this. And the third motion is to bring the whole works back up. Now you're almost to the stowed position, but now it's pretty close to swing a little left, and then just kind of move this hand down that way and poke it. Poke. Oop, missed. But you get my point. Does that make sense to you?
It makes sense.
But it's putting the theory into practice is tough.
Yeah.
It's hard. You're doing.
It's very hard.
Doing
You're doing
well
you're doing really incredible
for your first time.
Yeah, it takes hours to get even some kind of understanding of how it all works.
Wouldn't it be easier to just like, I don't know, lock a certain part of the joint so you don't have to like constantly.
Absolutely, and you end up learning how to do that subconsciously with your hands, but it takes time. So we broke it down into 3 movements. The first one was bringing that whole wrist and jaws out parallel with the elbow, parallel with the forearm. That's move number 1.
Set time to bottom.
Give it a sec there, Emil. It'll
Oh,
update.
Bridge
Sure.
video.
Approaching 1,000 meters, and we're going.
Send
to
an electrician back to look at
1620.
one of our air conditioners that has stopped working, please. Thank you.
It's jumping around a bit.
More or less, you got that first movement down. And the second movement is bringing the 3 colors towards the big, long upper arm.
It's going to be about 30
And that's
minutes.
bringing this part close to
600
this
meters,
part.
20 meters a minute. It's about a half hour. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
You get the right idea?
Thanks.
So once those colors get right up against the upper arm, then you can stand the whole upper arm right vertical.
So Emil, you were saying it's still a half hour until we reach bottom?
About 600 meters, yeah.
Okay.
25 minutes.
25.
That's what I've got. Just got the right idea. You got to bring the arms together and up. It's tough, isn't it? Yeah, you're doing awesome though.
All right, Nav, I think we could go back with the bathymetry on
Can
the
it do which?
survey.
Yes.
What was that, Emil? You want to
Dude,
go
you
back
Get
to
almost
bathy?
parallel.
The colored bathymetry.
Yeah.
And that's the
It's
joint using
available
your
to
left
turn
hand.
on whenever you need.
Great.
So you can ignore the hose for now, ignore the pipe for now. Just try to get the arm as vertical as possible. There you go.
There you go.
That's
Nice.
it.
Good job,
Nice.
Avery.
Yeah. That's exactly the right move. So now just stand up the final joint, which is the one closest to you. You might need a couple halts on that one. Can I give you some advice on this one? So once it's halted, I'll show you. So sometimes it's nearly impossible to mimic exactly what the arm looks like. So right now, you're doing good, and you're bringing this elbow in like that, but you're leaving this jammed down like that, which is up here, right? If you want to mimic the arm exactly, you're actually going to be into your knee. So you can stretch it way out, and that'll still work. That's an exaggeration. It doesn't need to be this crazy far out. But my point is, if you want to make this joint and this joint parallel, hold on a sec. So yeah, you want to make the joints parallel, you halt it and you bring them in parallel, great, but they don't need to stay parallel on this controller on the master. You can stretch it out, and now you have control. You can put your hand underneath there, and that's just, as long as you don't move this joint, it's already staying in that spot. If it's folded up, as it is right now, and you keep moving that joint, it's just not going to go any farther. You know what I mean? So right now, what I'm seeing was you were out here, you're folding that in, which is all great, then you can't really bring this up anymore because you're kind of already up here. And as soon as you start doing that, you stretch this out again. So in order to do that, just bring this whole works down again, then bring it all the way up together. You follow me? So your hand's here, pulling back on here, pulling this joint up. But you got the right idea, just needs practice. And it's really hard to move one joint without moving the other 6 until you get the hang of it, until you get the feel for it. But you're doing really good. Pretty much, yeah. I bet you could go over and poke the hose now, or poke the thing.
So for everyone
okay.
watching
First
us
time
at
at
home, we would
Absolutely.
love to know where you're watching us from. So feel free to write in your questions, say hi,
I've seen
tell us
people
where
take
you're
longer,
watching
so
from.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah.
It is currently 8:54 p.m. here, close to Holland Island.
Oop.
What time is it at
Okay, could you halt it, please?
your place?
And get you out of that. You can get caught up
The
in itself.
turns were out there a little bit after sunset, but I don't hear them as loud as they were last night. We had,
Yeah.
I think there were sooty turns from Baker Island that were flocking around the ship last night.
So this aluminum
seems quieter
bar there,
tonight.
you can actually hit. There's no give on that, so you don't want to hit that too much. Better to hit.
So,
pretty
it's
loud last
yeah.
night.
it's a lot of, about 11 species, I think, on on Baker, and probably I assume it's the same as for Howland. They are national wildlife refuges administered by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on land and out to 20 nautical miles
That'll do it.
from shore, and then
Yeah.
from 20 out to the
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
boundaries of
I
the
didn't either.
Marine National Monument is
It's not on the same
administered
side.
by NOAA.
There it is. Look at that.
Did it.
So on a historical note, the Howland, Baker, and Jarvis, they were part of the American Equatorial Islands colonization project to make them U.S. territory. It was a secret program in 1935. They gathered young native Hawaiians and some furloughed Army personnel to colonize Howland, Baker, and Jarvis in groups of 3 or 4 for up to 4 months at a time.
What do you want to do now?
And then in 1936, they were declared U.S. territory.
Can you go back
They
to there
kept
and then back to
the
there?
colonizers there. The Army personnel realized they were older. Most of the colonizers were Native
Back
Hawaiians,
to poking
young
it this
men,
way,
graduates
then
of
going this way, then going this way.
Kamehameha schools.
Yeah.
And they were fine with this assignment. Even the Army personnel didn't enjoy it so much, and they saw that the young guys were capable of taking care of themselves, so it became just the native Hawaiians, I think, from 36 on.
It's pretty bleak.
And yeah, right, a pretty tough existence.
Yeah.
It came to an end in February 1942, so they were on December 8th, 1941, after the day after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Howland, Baker, and Jarvis were bombed, and 2 of the young colonizers of Howland Island were killed in that bombing.
Oop.
So it brought the project to an end.
So were the same people inhabiting the islands from 35 to 40?
No, they'd rotate them through for
Okay.
4-month shifts. One of the accomplishments was to building the airstrip that was to be used by Amelia Earhart. They even rigged up a shower for her with a shower head out of a coffee can, I think. And but I can't really fault Amelia for not seeing Howland. This is a tiny little island,
It is.
not much above sea level.
All right, it seems like comments are starting to trickle in. We have people watching us from California, New Zealand, Idaho. Hello, everyone. Victoria, Armenia, Arizona, Puerto Rico, hola, and California.
Way easier the second time, isn't it?
Armenia, that's new. Hello.
Romania?
Armenia.
Armenia. Oh.
So we had a science communication fellow from New Zealand out here in 2013, 2014, Hannah Pryor.
Yeah,
She's now working for the World Wildlife Foundation.
awesome.
For quite a while. At the time, she was with Sir Peter Blake Trust. She was doing a lot of good outreach and leadership training of the future leaders of New Zealand.
Back on? Oh, that one, not this one.
Oh, we have someone from the Philippines.
Oh, maybe soon. Okay. Yeah, I know. 20, yeah. Yep.
So those California
Okay,
viewers
it
are
is
up
cooling
late.
down.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. in Puerto Rico right now, according to our viewer. Just super early. Or late, depending on how you see it. So 55 a.m. in Arizona.
The undergrab, nice style points.
You just have to pretend it was. Yeah.
Most of the things I do with the arm, I just pretend were intentional. Yeah. Sure. You think you can stow it? Careful if you tip up too high. You're still far away, but you can get up into the light bar too. So do you think you can stow it away? Nice and vertical and tucked away?
Got excellent conditions. Occasional rainstorm out here with being in the equatorial Central Pacific.
Nice.
It's common,
Nice.
but really
Perfect.
calm seas and good conditions for launching and
that's a good start.
recovering the
You
vehicles.
got the wrist done.
Really fortunate.
You can see it in bubble how it's far out.
Far out, dude.
Yeah.
Trade winds out of the east at about 10, 15 knots.
That's why you give that wiggle.
Nice.
There it is. Look at that compound movement too. One more of those in your way. Not quite. Pretty much repeat the same movement and you're there.
Yeah, so for those
Nice.
of you just signing in
Awesome. It's now
and
halted.
starting to watch our live
Good.
stream,
You can stow
we
that.
are currently
And
located
what you
to
wanna
the
do
northwest side of
is
Howland
press and hold the
Island.
jaw close down.
Our
This one.
ROVs are currently
And then push the blue
descending
button.
to an
The
expected
button just to the right
maximum
of
depth
the
of
blue light.
1,622 meters.
Nice.
And we'll be making
Now use your
our
hydraulics
way up a
Awesome.
ridge
Awesome
up
job.
to a
Good job.
minimum depth. Is it of 700 meters, Emil?
About that, yep. And we'll actually, the 1622 is the depth that, you know, where the vehicles will be landing. We might go a little bit deeper as we transit between these topographic features along the ridge. But generally, yeah, the general direction will be ascending towards Howland Island. We did several hours of mapping, multi-beam bathymetry mapping around the island today, and then finished up with one track coming right along this ridge to, it was previously mapped, but that enabled us to get some nice backscatter data in addition to the depths from the multi-beam sonar. In addition to the bathymetry, the depths of the ocean here, we get backscatter, which indicates how hard the bottom is. And that's really useful for planning where to focus our efforts as we move up the ridge, looking for the harder substrate where corals and sponges, it'd be favorable habitat for corals and sponges. And we've seen that the, you know, these animals provide their sources of food for some animals. They are, they enable some animals, some of the associates that live with them, to climb up, get off the seafloor, out of the sediment and up into the water column where they could have a better chance of finding food. In some cases, they're nurseries. We saw a coral with snailfish, I believe it was snailfish eggs in the laid in the coral. So they serve a lot of roles.
Lots of brittle stars on some of the coral we've been seeing.
Brittle stars seem to love these deep water corals, yeah. It's hard to find one without a brittle star
Yeah.
or a squat lobster.
It's almost like they're little neighborhoods around the deep sea environment.
Definitely. I always think of like Finding Nemo or something.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see. So all of a sudden we have a very, well, it seemed to be almost bare environment with a lot of sea snow on the bottom, and then all of a sudden there's an outcropping or a boulder, and there's a lot of coral and different invertebrates associated with it, and they're all just hanging out and sharing the space.
Yeah, life finds a way to fill niches. Yeah.
Emil, temperature's coming down in here to our baseline.
Yeah, it's feeling better. So how warm is too warm for the computers?
Oh, we got a long ways to go for that.
Yeah.
I think in Mexico we were into the 90s.
Oh. In here.
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
I can't imagine that. Wow.
Yeah,
Up to
well,
the
Ed,
90s in here?
Ed wraps a flannel around his waist, and
Yeah. Still
Can we turn that
down
light
there.
off?
90 in here felt like about 20 degrees cooler than ambient outside.
Yeah.
It was really warm down there.
Oh,
You break out the birch branches, sit there and whip yourself, and
Yeah.
now, Trevor, some of our viewers were pretty fascinated with hearing you teach Avery on how to manage Hercules. So whenever you get a chance, if you can just do a little overview about how do you go about navigating with Hercules and using the arms, that would be great.
You want to start with navigating, Rennie?
Navigating and then yeah. So navigation.
I know that was a very broad
Yeah.
question.
Well, a lot of it, I'll explain the systems that get us to the, to the bottom, but then a lot of it requires, just like human memory and navigation. So Trevor is there and almost placing himself in the sub. So when he turns left 90 degrees, he has a memory of how many degrees he's gone and how far he's traveled on the seafloor. Once you have visual cues on the seafloor, you can drive around, but then you can get spun around a bit and not remember where you were with the seafloor looking the same, or say there's a watch change or something like that. So we do have positioning systems that tell us where we are and where we want to go, but the on-the-ground stuff is much like you'd navigate the real world. It's a lot of focus and paying attention. You don't want to be spinning around or driving without paying attention, or you won't know where you are. It's just like driving a car. But as far as positioning, knowing where the vehicles are on an XY screen, on a map. I gave this explanation the other day, but the ship has GPS, so it's talking with satellites, and we're able to know where on the Earth the ship is, but GPS does not work underwater.
Actually, aren't we listening to satellites?
What's that?
Are we talking with? Or
No, we're not
listening
talking
to?
with them. We're listening.
Okay.
I can do that explanation again if you want, but I was trying to expedite it. But yeah, we're listening to satellites. They're broadcasting their what time it is, so they have atomic clocks on them. We know where these satellites are, and we know that they're broadcasting what time it is, and depending on when you receive that message, delays in time versus time of flight through the atmosphere, you can triangulate where you are if you have 3 or more satellites. So the ship knows where it is. GPS doesn't work underwater, so we use acoustics. So we're able to either acoustically interrogate the vehicles by sending out a pulse, and that tells the vehicles to send a pulse back. Or in our case, we have the luxury of having a powered and communications cable that's running down to the vehicles. So we just tell them via an electrical command that we'd like them to talk to us. So they respond with an acoustic pulse, and the ship has transceivers that are placed close together, and due to the way that there's a phase difference of the way that the single pulse comes back, and the way that these 3 transceivers hear it, the difference in the phase can help triangulate which direction the sound is coming from, and how far away it is.
so I don't recall, is that electrical trigger from the ship go all the way to Herc, or is it go to just Argus?
Well, it used to go only to Argus.
Yeah.
Only to Herc. And
Herc,
now which was the more critical vehicle, because we know Argus is somewhere down there, or attached to it. We're attached to Herc too, but but then we, no offense Argus, you're critical too. But then we being Bob Waters figured out a way to split that signal, so we're able to electrically interrogate both, which is great because it reduces any error of either of the vehicles not being able to hear.
But they both acoustically respond.
But they both acoustically respond, yeah. So we're able to tell where they are in relation to the vessel, and we pair that with the
I can't see
GPS,
it anymore.
and
Let's put it back to
we can
200.
tell where the vehicles are on the bottom within certain
I was just saying we're getting
accuracy and
close.
precision
We can
ranges.
see it in the sonar now.
Then once you get on the bottom,
Once you get on the bottom, that gives us a general position. So this interrogation, the acoustical response that these transponders are emitting can only happen so often because of the speed of sound through water. So if we're shallower than 2,000 meters, we can have this respond every 1.5 seconds. If we're deeper, closer to 3 seconds. And it also has some inherent inaccuracies with it. When we're on the bottom with Hercules, we're able to use another acoustic sensor that helps us with a very high precision, drive around with high precision on super local high precision grid. We call that DVL. You'll hear us say that. It stands for Doppler velocity log. So if you're in oceanography at all, and you're familiar with an ADCP, it's an acoustic Doppler current profiler. Someone got the bright idea to take one of those, which can measure the velocity of current via acoustics bouncing off of particles in that current, and the Doppler effect. The Doppler effect you may be familiar with if you're standing on the side of a highway and a tractor trailer is honking its horn. As it approaches you, the frequency changes, and as it drives away from you, it modulates down. Or similar with the ice cream truck playing a song as it drives away, it gets more and more depressing.
no.
You know, it's like, no, it's matching your enthusiasm, the drop of enthusiasm. So we can take this ADCP that's normally affixed on the seafloor and facing upwards to assess current, and face it downwards and put it on a vehicle. And what we're able to do is bottom tracking of the seafloor and sense velocity across the ground, across the seafloor. And this whole concept in general is called dead reckoning. So dead reckoning is basically if you're standing still and I tell you to turn your body 90 degrees and step 3 meters, and then I say turn your body 45 degrees to your left and step 5 meters. That's dead reckoning. You're basically drawing. I'm giving commands based on distance and a bearing. But this kind of deteriorates with time. What if you were a few centimeters off in one of those steps, or a few degrees off in one of those angles? Over time, you're going to be in the wrong spot, even though you think you're in a different spot. So that sensor allows us to drive along the ground, but we have to pair it with something. So we pair it with our USBL system. That was that acoustic positioning system I was talking about earlier. So we occasionally reaffix it to that. So when we're talking about a DVL reset, we're saying, hey, you've gotten off in your dead reckoning over time. Maybe you lost your sensor on a steep slope or something like that. Let's reset you to where a more accurate position. And then DVL in general, if you know how fast you're going and which direction you're going, then you can essentially tell it to stop moving. So our DVL sensor can communicate with the vehicle's thrusters and have it hold position. So we're able to call it auto XY. So on the XY plane under Hercules, we're able to hold position. And then we can give it commands like, rather than driving manually with joysticks, we can press buttons and drive in certain directions. We're about to get to the bottom, and after that, once we get going, Trevor can talk a bit about the Hercules system.
Yeah, thank you so much for that explanation.
Yeah.
I have like a minute, so I could do a quick version.
Do it.
Do it.
Go for it.
The arms. We get 2 arms. The port arm is controlled with buttons, whether on the computer screen or through a little numeric keypad. And you use that arm, moving 1 joint at a time. There's 7 total joints on the port arm, 7 function arm. And you hit a button, that joint moves. Hit another button, the other joint moves. And use that step by step to get to where you want to be.
Can that arm do compound moves? Can you be pressing 2 buttons? And
The short answer is no. The longer answer is yes if you do it in just the right way.
okay.
But it's not
yeah.
made for that.
Okay, thanks.
So that's called a rate arm, or it's controlled with solenoid valves that are either on or off. There's no varying speeds or anything. It's just either open or closed. It's moving or it's not. The right arm is a lot smarter. It's real cool. It's a SC arm, spatially corresponded, and it's controlled with a miniature version of itself up in the control van. And when you move that miniature version around, the real version just copies those movements and pretty much does the same thing exactly. And those are controlled using servo valves, which allow for different speeds and different rates. Instead of just moving up at 1 speed, you can go fast, you can go slow, you can move all the joints at the same time, all at different speeds, different directions. Hopefully that's the cliff notes of, that was the question, right? How do the arms work?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I think that was a really great answer from both of you.
I have a feeling our Argus Mezzo isn't gained enough, but I was pressing that a bunch and I don't see anything going anywhere. 30 high, high.
30 high, high.
Yeah. I don't know. What's our Argus?
Argus is coming to a stop now, 30 meters. Now you're at 25, so you want to stop at 30 meters. So you can stop the winch. We wanted to stop at 30. You can range that down. Maybe you can range that down.
Got bottom.
Good. There we go in Mezzo. Herc Mezzo. Bottom.
You can figure out that that Herc Mezzo?
Yeah, the Argus Mezzo. I'll figure it out.
Argus Mezzo, that's the one.
I'll
What
try
is
to
that thing?
troubleshoot it. Okay, logging on bottom there, Gina.
What is that on the
Got
bottom?
it,
Is that an
thank you.
organism? Oh yeah, good.
And
The odds of coming down right in the line are pretty minimal.
not this again. I'm gonna restart high pack. Do you want a quick DVL reset over here?
Can you put on auto heading, please? So that's the thrusters power 2. You can go ahead. Thruster power 2. Thruster power.
Okay, you're driving there on that. I'll give you a full one after
Thank you.
this.
Yes.
I am going to restart our high pack survey. Didn't shut off.
It's very crusted.
Now these rocks are still mostly comprised of basalt, correct?
Basalt,
or say
and
some
with the
carbonate? Or-
Basalt with an iron
You can bring your
manganese
head to
crust.
starboard. 135.
Sand ripples show that there's a pretty good current here.
Are you, did you restart this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I was troubleshooting a different thing.
Oh, I think I see a little fish on the bottom right
Oh, yeah, you
of
can
her.
keep coming around and keep me in view. That looks better. I mean, worse, but better.
All right. So now our gain on it. Let me just check the settings in the control head to see that we're fine,
Roger.
which we should be.
I bet it just was stuck somehow.
Yeah. High 30.
Look at that gain though. Wowie zowie.
Wowie zowie. All right, so now let's get
Okay, you can
that
come back
there.
down in your delta again.
So Ed, what do we have going out on the website?
Right now, until we get white balance and everything, we've got Herc and Argus Zeus and Cam Psi, and we'll switch that over to Bubble or Nav, depending on your preference.
Yeah.
Can you come full extra super wide, Ed?
Yeah, ginormous wide right there.
Thank you.
That looks reasonable, maybe. Herc is a little too hot. Tuck it away. I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, that stuff we're seeing in Argus, I think maybe is overgained, but we'll figure out once we approach a wall. I'm collecting data.
Okay, Ed, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to let Marley do this one, so I'm going to talk her through it.
Roger that.
So first thing you want to do is go ahead and just zoom in on Herc. And you're going to go all the way in. There's going to be, no matter how much of that you see, you're going all the way in. And then you're going to get in focus. And what you're going to look for is to see the line on the piece of tape going across there. And you'll be able to tell there as well. And there it is. Oh, right there. And now we want it about that bright. So you're going to bring your iris on here up to about there. That's good. Although we got a goofy white balance out of this yesterday, because see all this stuff over here? It doesn't know that from this. So can we get a little bump to the right, Trev?
I'll move the arm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, that's good there. Thank you. And now I would advise him, we're going to go ahead and black balance the camera. This is going to make it dark for about 5 seconds. This is intentional. That's going to go ahead and start now. Then we're just going to push and release ABB. It's going to dark it up. I can actually look over here and show you. So it electronically adjusted where that was. The light goes out. Then we're going to go ahead and white balance by doing the same thing but away from us. If you look up there, you'll see a white balancing. And then the light's going to go out. We're going to press and hold on memory 1 until we hear it beep. Make sure you push and hold, otherwise we got to do the whole thing over.
Herc sonar's backwards.
Yeah.
So
hear
it
a
must
beep.
not be in the
There
settings.
you go. Yeah, it's
Ah,
that light right there. And then you're going to
no,
pull
it's
out.
correct.
Make sure you see red,
For
green,
sure.
and blue tape on the arm.
180 out or 90 out?
If you see blue, green, and red,
Is it?
your color's
Yeah.
180
Look at
degrees
this.
Well,
out.
8
Yeah.
meters away?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
we
white
should
balance,
have
Trev. We're
that.
ready to move
Yeah.
on.
So maybe it's
Yeah.
flipped. We got to sort this.
It's not very deluxe, is it?
No, because not everyone's gonna
Notice that?
notice or check.
No.
Still a humongous wine.
Okay, Ed, I'm ready for regular video action.
Yeah.
Can I have you come back out and come back in and
Say the word.
now?
Still on my checklist here.
Okay. Good.
Back in.
All right.
Okay, ROV's ready to science.
We gotta reset.
Okay. So when you're ready, Nav.
Can you please range me up? 30
Would you
meters
like to
there?
head up to this
Yep.
peak?
Yep. We're going to ascend about, what's that, 10, 20 meters or so?
Yep.
To a little topographic high here, and then we'll come back down this side and go northeast.
All right, I'm gonna go stepwise, 40 meters at a time, bearing 200.
All right.
200, roger. I'll head over that way.
Bridge now. One step, 40 meters, bearing 200. Thank you.
It's like a current coming from several directions here, given a cross wave pattern in the sand.
Could you give me preset 4 for a second, please? Okay, never mind. I'm good, thanks. Sanity check.
Go ahead, bridge. 40 meters, bearing 200. Thank you.
Now, when it comes to sampling for any geological features, are you looking to sample towards the beginning, end, or middle of the transect, or are you just looking for any opportunity to sample?
We're looking for a good opportunity to get a nicely crusted piece of basalt so that we can analyze the mineral content of that crust. We also want to get the nice piece of basalt from a pillow flow so that we can help date the feature, date the island. These look like
I
pillowy
think that's going to be better.
flows.
Yeah.
It's weird because you didn't do anything different, did you?
No. On the pre-dive, they were powered off without being stopped, so I'm suspect of that.
This looks more real.
Yeah. I'm seeing this 30 meters, I'm seeing that at more than 30. Oh, nope, that's 10 meter divisions. At exactly the same amount, so it's good. It's real.
Now, is it possible that if we were to sample closer to the top of the island, so more to the end of our dive, and collect a sample there, that the sample it's a little bit younger than the ones that we would have found closer to the beginning of the dive, aka bottom?
Well, that would require different lava flow events. It's possible there were multiple eruptions and that, one would travel not as far as the other, but I think